Welcome to No Room for Phonies, episode 77.
Your
Little
quilting
foray into my quilting life, just for fun. So the green light moment that I have is a quote that I found in the book that I was reading on called Change Your World. And it says, "We are today where our conversations have brought us. We will be tomorrow where our conversations take us." So I just thought that was,
Well, and it kind of speaks to the power of words.
yes. And conversation. Like if you want to move something forward and change it, they have something that they call transformation tables. And so that's about conversation and being vulnerable and
So
sharing.
it's actually a
and-
table of people sitting around and talking.
Yes.
Cool.
But I mean, there's a way, they have a way of
Yes,
doing
it's
it,
an
of
approach,
course.
obviously.
So on my book recommendation this time is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And it is not for the faint of heart to read his book because he is a Holocaust survivor and a psychiatrist. And he tells the story of being in the camps, although not in the same way that other people do. It's very psychological, like
Right.
how they survived psychologically.
Right. And it's observations
basically.
also of the Nazi soldiers.
Yes,
as well.
there's a lot to it. But his main saying is, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how."
Wow.
So anyway, but it's a very, very, very good book. And my podcast recommendation is Kate Bowler just did one with Fred Penner, and I haven't listened to it yet, but I think it would be super fun to listen to that podcast.
I don't know if everybody knows who Fred Penner is, but he was a CBC television personality, kids personality, and songwriter and singer. And our kids watched him. And was he when you were a kid? No,
I don't think so. No, it was
he's
more
not
when
that
I was
much.
teaching, right?
Yes.
That Fred Penner.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the when, why, how of, like, I did all the question words and I just talked about them. So I did when, why, what, how, who, where. So
all the WH questions.
All the WH questions.
So just so the audience knows, you did not start quilting when you
I
were
say
young.
that.
I know, but
okay, go ahead.
You did not start quilting young or crafting young,
No.
period. So when did you actually start?
So I wanted to say that when I quilt, like I probably quilt or sew something almost daily in all seasons. And now I've
Which kind of floors me, because when we met, you were like almost anti-sewing.
Yeah, but I've also expanded into sewing garments and then like craft things. Like I sewed some tote bags and
Like accessories.
accessory kinds of things. I do a lot of quilted pouches and like things that can be used as gifts. I've also done bowl cozies that you can put in the microwave, like that kind of thing, right? So I've really expanded beyond. And our weekly quilting group meets on Wednesday morning. And I started the January after I retired, which is like almost 5 years ago. Or around 4 years ago. I'm not sure.
This January will be 4 years.
4 years that I've quilted. So, and you can go on the blog and see the things that I've quilted. Like I have a section for quilting and sewing. So you can follow along and see some of the things that I've done.
All the projects you've done.
So here's the why. Quilts, I love fabric and I love color. I do love that.
Yep.
So quilts feed the fabric addict's heart and budget because you use everything when you quilt. I hardly ever throw any pieces of fabric away.
No, that's the bonus of, because you can make scrappy quilts out of all the little odds and ends.
And one of the favorite parts of quilting for me is actually designing it using all the different fabrics. Like at Quilting last week, we're doing these placemats and they had a certain way of doing them in the pattern and then we switched it all. So it's just a matter of, and quilts are cozy and we now have one in almost every room of our house.
Yeah, we do. And they're nice just to, in winter, warm up.
And they look pretty. And we have an old house, so our quilts are more old fashioned, but I just finished a modern quilt, which I posted on the blog. So
very cool.
And you can use quilts to preserve memories. You can use fabrics to create quilted pillows and blankets and bookmarks, etc. And an old quilt can be reused to create small items that are sentimental. So, like sometimes
it's a lot of upcycling.
Yes,
sure.
A lot of upcycling. So that's another reason. And I love adding to my holiday tables with a table runner or hanging or a blanket or placemats or something. So that really does. And as I said, there is really no quilting season. It can be a year-round endeavor. I know that some people don't quilt in the summer.
I don't understand because
I don't say I quilt as much.
House, then, but you can do hand piecing.
Yeah, and quilts make amazing and beautiful gifts. So I have made really countless baby quilts now, and even the modern quilts. And I Spy quilts are so fun for kids. I've done 2 I Spy quilts now.
So that's where you can play I Spy with my little eye by looking at
things in the fabric that makes you kind of fussy cut things into, and you can do them in blocks. The one that I did most recently, I did in hexagons for little Mason, and I put all his favorite things in it, fire trucks and all that, so he can look at it.
What is fussy cutting?
It's when you see something in the fabric, like you see a tree and you want that to be in the center of the block, so you actually cut it so that it has a seam allowance, but it ends up in the center of the block. Okay. There's no end to what you can do when you know how to sew and quilt. Like, you can do anything. And once you start quilting, you just get better and better and better at it. Like when I started the big quilt,
more ideas.
When I started the big quilt for our bed, I was a very new quilter, but I just kept going and learned to do it. And
now we have a queen size, well, not duvet. It's a blanket.
It's a quilt. A quilt. Quilting allows you to be creative and show your own tastes in how you design things. And you also can create a community. You can reach out to others. You can quilt together. You can share ideas and patterns and things. And it's just fun. You can fill a day without even stopping or thinking. And when you're retired, it is a good time to kind of stretch yourself to try something new.
No, but the beauty of quilting is if you are working and busy, it's easy to set aside.
Yes.
And you just need a little bit of table space, or you have a system with Ziploc bags.
Yeah, where we store things or whatever. And so what have I quilted? The most challenging project was the bedspread that took me over a year, right, to complete that. And I love baby quilts and the I Spy quilts. Baby quilts are probably my favorite. If I had like 8 till 10 at night where I did nothing but quilt, I could do a baby quilt in a day.
Right.
So, and I love the fabrics, the collecting, the choosing, the creating. Bowl cozies, placemats, table runners. So I would encourage you to look on the blog. There's all kinds of different pouches. Quilting pouches were one of my starting projects, and I still like making those. I've learned to make them with wider bottoms, and then
they're really nice because the other ones are great, but they're more pencil case.
Yeah,
and the wider
but these
bottoms
have wider. And then we were at a craft show yesterday, and I saw some other kinds of pouches that I might want to try. And that's actually how I learned to put a zipper in.
Right,
was by doing those pouches
rather than on a garment. Yep.
The first project I ever did was a baby quilt for my friend, for Mason, when he was a baby, and then I did him one later. And I actually, whatever project comes up, kind of ready to go. I even made a curling iron case for someone, so that was fun to try something new. And I quilted it really, really tight.
And you basically had to invent how it would work. You can look at some ideas.
Yeah.
Store-bought kind, and then make
your
version.
I did find a pattern that was pretty
pretty
good for that. And I wrote a blog for a while, and that's where the quilt in my living room came from. And you can find that blog.
It's all linked to
it's in there.
In your blog.
Yeah. And
you were a guest blogger.
I made quilted baskets one year for Christmas. And I've made others then for birthday gifts.
You even made a pair of quilted slippers. The slipper top was quilted.
Those slipper tops were quilted. And one of my favorite things to do, which I haven't done for a while, I'll have to do another one soon, are the paper piecing birds.
You really like it? You usually end up like frustrated.
I know, but the last one I made, I would say I didn't. I made a cardinal, right? For as a favor to somebody.
But no, you did the one on the wall, the bird.
Oh, the bird that matches our quilt is the last one I did. But I do like paper piecing. And
I like paper piece designing.
Yeah, so he has a program on a software program where you can do that. And you also have...
I could spend 2 hours a night just doing that.
And you also have a software program where you can design quilts and quilt blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love hexes. They're like crazy fun.
So, and hexes are hand sewn, right? You join them together. Well, first you have to fold the edges over and sew.
Well, little hexes, but the hexes that I did for Mason's quilt, I sewed them.
Oh, that was just with the famous.
So it's just about the shape.
Okay, I see what you're saying. You like
it's
the
just
hexagon.
I like that kind of a thing, and pillows are fun to make. And then I did that one for crumb quilting, which I sold in the States. So there are as many quilts or ideas for quilting as there are things in your head and fabric to buy. Like you can just do pretty much anything.
And if you're picturing just the old-fashioned quilt from the Amish country, that's just one style. There's so many different kinds of quilt styles.
Completely different. So how? I would say mostly by trial and error, by just jumping in and trying something out. Like we buy a lot of pattern books and things, and I haven't taken a class yet, but we challenge our little quilting group. We challenge each other to do things, and we're always looking for something new to try. The Wandering Wife became one, and we're still working on that, but we've abandoned it because we're doing some placemats for Christmas. So you can buy pattern books, and like I bought the bird pattern book,
but there's a ton of online.
And you've bought me actually a crumb quilting book now, and hexie. I have hexie books, right? Mm-hmm. So finding different styles of quilting. There's hexies and log cabins and Dresden plates, and learning how to create your own quilts with the software and using your stitch ripper when things don't go well.
And your 5-stitch rule.
And the 5-stitch
trick.
For matching seams. So instead of like when you're trying to match seams, instead of sewing the whole seam, I just do 5 stitches over where it's matched. And then if it isn't matched, you can just quickly take that little bit apart and rematch it. But I am getting better.
Because there's more layers of fabric to go through at seams, and that sometimes that bulkiness causes things to end up askew, and then you have to
and you do it. And the other thing I've done is rag quilts, right, with just a flannel.
Oh, the flannelette ones,
right? And then you clip
them. Yeah,
I have a couple of examples on my blog of those. And then the friendships, the who part is the friendships that I've formed through quilting have really changed both our lives, really.
Absolutely.
Because we have a quilting group that meets, and then we're so much more than that.
Yeah, it's become a real support group.
Right? Like they have really, like when we were having your surgery and stuff, we had a really good support group to help us. And I have a big quilting room set up, now that we're empty nesters.
But if you're in a small apartment, you just need the dining room table and a plastic tote box, and you can slide it underneath and put things in Ziploc bags and put it away. No,
and I mean, we're fortunate. I'm fortunate here because I have a huge space, but it doesn't have to be that way. But we like to visit fabric stores and quilt shops and making connections online about certain things, right?
Yep.
So
I was just thinking also, like, we're empty nesters. By the way, there's an episode about empty nesting, recent one.
Yes, there is.
So that also has made room in our house because of that.
Right. Yeah. Like we have 2 full rooms that we have set aside for like our knitting, crocheting, quilting, sewing,
weaving soon.
So we have a really big area dedicated to all that, but you don't have to have that to be that way. So, so that's kind of my quilting life. And I just would encourage you to go on our website, our blog, whatever, and look at some of the stuff we've done. And if you need like some help getting started or you're struggling with something, I would just encourage you to send me a message even through the blog, and I definitely check the messages there. So, this is the end of November and my quilting life. December 15th, we're going to talk.
It's not the end of your quilting life.
This is the end of
it's the end of November.
Of the podcast, My Quilting Life.
Okay.
And then December 15, we're going to talk about what are the best and craziest games available.
Like table
and how
games
much do they cost.
Okay,
We're going to talk about ones we've tried and all this stuff. And then December 30th, I think we're going to do headlines. And then January 15th, we have our first guest.
All right.
On our podcast.
We're not announcing who that is.
We're not announcing who it is, but I've almost filled the whole year, one guest a month. So, but if you would still be interested in being a guest, please don't hesitate to let us know, because we do have spaces left for some guests, but we're very excited that next year is going to be all about guests on our podcast.
Yeah.
No room for phonies. So thanks for listening to My Quilting Life. And as the holidays approach, it's a good time to think about the new year, right? And maybe you want to start to be a quilter in the new year.
Start making plans for becoming a little crafty. Because
it is a good release. Like, even though there are times when quilting is frustrating, it is good as a
stress reliever.
Yeah,
so, absolutely.
Especially when you're just doing it for fun.
Yeah. So no high stakes.
No high stakes.
All right. So thank you for joining us on episode 77.
No Room for Phonies, My Quilting Life. And have a great day.